have a theory about how the increased accessibility of Ozempic is going to lead to a complete.
Unfortunately, I really don't agree with this take. I don't think that thin is the beauty standard is going anywhere because while I agree with what she says in the video, I think it also ignores a few other factors that sort of cement thinness in as beauty standard pretty firmly, at least for the foreseeable future. The first factor is that Ozempic is not going to become like available to the masses. I mean, look who's about to enter office as the Director of Health and Human Services. He fucking hates Ozempic. He is not going to make it affordable. People are taking away Medicaid. Poor people are not actually going to have access to it, unfortunately. The second reason is that even if everybody who wanted Ozempic or who was at all overweight could access it, it does not make you lose like however much weight you need to lose to be skinny. Like it makes you lose, I think, about 10% of your weight. Like you are not losing, if you weigh 300 pounds, you're not gonna be 120 pounds after taking Ozempic, especially not at like the dose for diabetes. You might be 270 pounds, but like you're not gonna be thin. You might be thinner, but you're not going to be thin. And there will still be a hierarchy of how thin people are. Ozempic doesn't make people skinny, it makes them lose weight. And there's a huge difference between those two things. You can lose a lot of weight and still be considered fat. It all just depends on how fat you were before. And the third thing is that while this is a really useful analysis of class and how class plays into fat phobia, unfortunately, fat phobia operates at a lot of different levels. Class is one, but also race is one. Race is arguably the original one. There's also gender, because fat phobia very much is applied differently to different genders. And as we have seen, patriarchy and misogyny are not going anywhere. And neither is racism. And I think a really key one here also is this sort of like religious Calvinist kind of energy that gets put on fat people where it's like you're morally good if you're thin because you're like practicing temperance and you're not like eating for pleasure. And then within that there is also the idea of health, and so you have the ableism intersection too, and that is not going anywhere, especially in an era where more and more people are becoming disabled because of long COVID, and more people are going to be unable to access healthcare to prevent them from becoming disabled in the coming years. So while I appreciate and agree with the class analysis of fat phobia, yes, it is rooted in this. Yes, there was a moment in history where finally the peasants in England could access sugar and they all got fatter, and the elites said, fuck, we better slim down to separate ourselves from them. That is a real thing that happened. But in 2024, when thinness symbolizes not only class status, but fitting your gender role properly, but fitting the white supremacist beauty standard, but like being a good citizen, a moral person, and being healthy, which is the ultimate mark of a moral person, I just don't think that it'll go anywhere if we don't untie all of that from our perceptions of fatness versus thinness. And I don't see us doing that anytime soon, even if everybody gets thin. I think if that happened, if everybody lost weight on Ozempic, the threshold would just change and you would have to be even thinner. I genuinely think that's what it would be. Because if I get on Ozempic and a thin celebrity gets on Ozempic and we lose the same amount of weight, guess what? I'm still fat next to them. So yeah, unfortunately, I just can't fully agree with this, although again, the class analysis is sound.